All right, it is 6:04. We will begin by opening up our annual budget hearing for the amended fiscal year 25 budget. Are there any comments? Hearing none, we will move on to our annual budget hearing for the proposed fiscal year 26 budget. Are there any comments? Hearing none, we will move on to the public comment for hearing on proposed new rules for employees and volunteers who conceal carry firearms. This is the first of two public comment hearings. The final public comment hearing will be at the August 12th, 2025 board meeting. Are there any comments? Hearing none, we will close this hearing as well, and we will call our official board meeting to order and begin with our Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Is there a second? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6 on our agenda is information and proposals. We did not have any committee meetings this month, which is rare, so no reports there. Next up is public comment. I do not believe we received any this evening. We are just flying right along. Item number 8 is our superintendent's report.
So the only item that I had was, or I had two items. The info on the cyber liability invoice that was paid prior to June 30th. This is something that we engage in on a yearly basis, and it is an attached PDF in regards to our liability. Also, update on district staffing. I will quick share this if I can. On the updated sheet, we have had some individuals fill positions in the district. So sharing is a little bit slow. So as you can see on this Excel document, we do have some new openings and have some filled also. Very fortunately, you will be voting later to accept the return of Mr. Glass into the position of TMS THS instrumental music. We are very, very pleased with that, but also wish him very well too on coming back and being excited to have him run such a great program. We did close the math position at Torrington High School. Mr. Van Tilburg had developed a plan in conjunction with the math teachers to fill that position through some different class structures and also utilization of some other staff in regards to intervention classes that will be open, and then the hiring of a math para. And so that will be one way that we're opening that. One of the positions that we did have filled, district social worker, the individual who we had hired for that position chose to rescind their acceptance of that. And so we have reposted that as of July 11th. And we still have a couple of open, as you can see, the Trail Academic and Behavior Specialist, Lincoln Title I Reading, and Lincoln First Grade. Those are open due to other transfers within the district. Those have not been due to resignations at those buildings, but to transfers where they remained in the district, but then opened up a position as they kind of moved around. And that is one of those things that we talked about when we developed those plans at the building level, that it creates this domino effect. And sometimes we get to July and we're still trying to fill positions because of that domino effect and that transfer within the district. piece. And so we'll be working on filling those positions shortly. Overall, Mr. Derby, if am I correct in saying that we right now we are currently expecting 12 new staff to go through staff orientation, which is significantly lower than we've had in past years. We've had a significantly higher number. So I think we did see a lot more consistency throughout the district this year in relating to filling those positions as opposed to a number of new staff. And that concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you.
Would there be the Yeah. Yeah, actually, Mr. Van Tiller, are you willing to kind of share exactly kind of what the plan is? we're going to need to be thinking, actually, the planning for hiring for the 26-27 is already started because we need to figure out we know for sure two hard to fill positions at THS, which would include the instrumental music. We know it's a hard to fill position that we need to have start and come outside and work outside the box on that and figure those things. One of the things that gets difficult is when we do those hiring incentives. Really, what we're just robbing from is another teacher, another location. And eventually, they're getting into the game of who's going to be offering more. And eventually, it's going to continue. We're offering this, we're offering this. We're not putting more teachers in the field, which that's what needs to be first addressed. Dr. Haas, in one of the meetings I was at today, I think he stated they had 13. Mike, can I get some feedback? So I have to feedback somewhere. Yeah. Anyway, along those lines, they have 13 people go to the CDL program. They're starting out at $65,000 a year. Our starting salary for a 4-year degree, and 4 of those 13 are high schoolers. Our starting salary is $56,856. Now, granted, costs everything else, but it's tough to sell the cost of a 4-year education, even though we have a really strong base. In comparison to districts in the state of Wyoming, you know where the state of Wyoming in comparison to other states is also what teacher pay. It's not unfortunately, it's going to be something that we're going to have to reckon with professional educators in the future. And it's going to be very difficult to reckon with that. No matter if we want many of our students to go into and finding other fields to go into and exploring those fields through other 2 years degrees, we need teachers to go through 4-year degree programs to become highly qualified educators, and we need to justify that too.
One other quick comment, and then I'll be done, is if you look around the state of Wyoming right now and Nebraska, there are a number of school districts that are still looking for math, science, even ELA, special education. I mean, I think we're about to see the wave come to the shore, and it's going to be ugly. And I'm just, as a board, be ready. I mean, I don't know what the answer is because we had the University of Wyoming here in the spring bringing some kids around. They visited Lingle and Torrington, and they visited, I think, Southeast as well. And they're not putting out the numbers. They're not even getting close to what this state needs. So any other questions for me? Thank you.
One thing on top of that I will say as a positive, of that visit that we had, students that were in their early years in the education program come to visit our 3 districts. We did get two students who have never been to Goshen County committed to student teaching here this year. So it was very successful having those people come visit. So, and we know the more student teachers we get, the more likelihood that they are going to want to stay because we have great experiences and great teachers.
Any further questions? Thank you so much for your impromptu presentation. Up next is our consent agenda. Would any of the trustees like to pull anything from our consent agenda this evening? If not, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 10, old business. Up first is our tabled item. Consider approval of contracting with Franklin Covey for professional development services. The recommendation is to approve contracting with Franklin Covey for Leader in Me professional development services at Lingle Fort Laramie Middle School during the 2025-2026 school year in the total amount of $14,400. And I believe, do we have her on Zoom this evening? Hello, thank you for joining us this evening.
Hello, good to see you all.
Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I'll get you set up in just a moment.
Can you hear me or am I only hearing you?
Can anyone lip read?
Captain.
Not moving on hers now. Or on the Zoom.
Can you hear me?
Jack one.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can barely. We'll turn you up here, Gwen, but we can hear you now.
Okay. All right. Turn it up.
One second.
Let me know when you're ready.
Can you hear us okay?
I can
Gwen?
hear you. Is
All
it
right,
better
we're
now?
getting Perfect now, Gwen. So go, feel free. If you want to introduce yourself to the
Yeah.
board and those here, we can have you get started and maybe hear some questions from board members too after you kind of have. I know Kevin kind of gave you an update, just some of the questions and thoughts and things, and let you kind of. I'll turn it over to you for a little while.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here with you all. I've been working with the schools and love Goshen County and all that is happening there. I live in Arizona, but I was born and raised here in the state of Wyoming. I am in Cheyenne right now because my husband's about to rope at the World Series team ribbon here in conjunction with Frontier Days. So I'm very familiar with the ways of Torrington and Wyoming. So I love working. I love the opportunity to come back up here and work within your schools. I have been with Franklin Covey for 3 years now. It is very near and dear to my heart in the way that we are empowering kids to really go out into the workforce and to college and to really be able to live a life of purpose and to be able to live into their potential, truly, in a nutshell for you. I just want to draw one connection for you real quick about what we do with Leader in Me. And that particular connection is, you may recognize this. Every student deserves to be seen, heard, and understand. And we foster a sense of community and belonging where every student is valued and supported. That comes from you all, which is magical. And then this morning, I was in meetings with Franklin Covey, a Leader in Me specifically. And Sean Covey, our president, said, all students have genius and deserve the opportunity to develop it and have the confidence to be able to act on those skills. And so it was just amazing to me to draw the connection between the two, your vision and the vision of Leader in Me. There's so much I could say, but I would love to hear your questions for me. If you have any questions about what we've been doing or questions about Leader in Me in particular.
Move the microphone a little closer. Gwen,
I'll
can you
just-
hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm going to turn my computer
Okay.
up a little bit. Okay, perfect.
Okay. So, the reason that I had presented the motion to ask you to come and speak with us today is because in Wyoming, you may be aware, and I was hoping maybe you were somewhat familiar with the legislation, but we had the passage into law as of July 1 of what was originally House Bill 147.
Mhm.
And of course, it is the anti-DEI legislation, and far from just outlawing an acronym. It's a series of specific things that the Wyoming legislature has decided that we just don't want. So my concern came from some of Franklin Covey's literature that specifically, and I know since the change of administration in DC, some of those items are no longer there. So one of the documents was very specific in using Leader in Me and teaching DEI through the 7 habits. So has Franklin Covey revamped that? Are you guys certain that, again, I'm hoping that maybe you had a chance to look at the legislation. I'm going to ask you the very specific question of, are you confident that there's nothing in that program, or that it's been revamped, or that it's being tailored to Wyoming, and that now we have a different law at play that we didn't have before when Franklin Covey first came to this district?
Yeah, I'm a little bit familiar with that. I did look at it. I couldn't quote it to you, but what I do know is that Leader in Me has no direct DEI policy. Specifically, it's we are working with kids, and that does not, the DEI, anything that was DEI has nothing to do with what we're doing with kids specifically. So there's no policy there that's connecting those things, to my knowledge. Does that answer your question?
It does a little bit, to your knowledge. I mean, and that's what you know, and I appreciate your answer. But that was just it. Is one of the things that we're responsible for as a board is to make sure that whatever things we approve, whatever actions we take, are not in violation of Wyoming statutes.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we just needed to check that box and make sure that we're doing our due diligence and making sure that we're not bringing something in that's going to run afoul of one of our statutes.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate the due diligence there for sure. I know that I'm working in the schools, and those are not things that come up. So it's not something that I'm working with the schools, and it's not something that we're talking about or that's coming up specifically there at all. Do you guys have any other questions for me?
Thank you so much for joining us, Gwen. Enjoy Cheyenne.
Thank you so much.
All right, so now do we have a motion to approve contracting with Franklin Covey for Leader in Me professional development services at Lingle Fort Laramie Middle School for the 2025-2026 school year in the total amount of $14,400?
I would move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 10.2, consider approval of revisions to District Policy 3641, use of school district vehicles after school late busing, as presented on second and final reading.
Trustee chairs, I've realized that I did not and have erred. Now that you have your voting systems in front of you, I will start voting again with that, just to remind trustees. I've neglected to do that because I was not paying close enough attention, and I've taken a month off from having to reset those. So you'll notice your monitors will be turned on here momentarily.
I was looking for that.
I apologize. That's my. Yes. So the little person icon with a and then your microphone should glow green when you hit it.
Now I don't remember where we were. The recommendation is to approve the revisions as presented on second and final reading. Do we have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. What? Yes. Are we okay? Um. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 10.3, consider approval of revisions to District Policy 4240, classified staff leaves and absences as presented on second and final reading. The recommendation is to approve the revisions as presented on second and final reading. Do we have a motion? Second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Do you want to wait a minute to figure out how to vote on the? Or should we just keep going? Okay.
Get it working and pop up, otherwise we'll go.
Which one was I just on? All right, item 10.4, consider approval of revisions to District Policy 4150, certified and professional staff leaves and absences as presented on second and final reading. The recommendation is to approve the revisions as presented on second and final reading. Do we have a motion? Second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 10.5. Consider approval of revisions to District Policy 5112.20 homeschooling and retitled to Participation and Access Guidelines for Home-Based Private School and Education Savings Account Students as presented on second and final reading. The recommendation is to approve the revisions as presented on second and final reading. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Any discussion?
Madam Chair, I do have a question again. I'm gonna apologize because the same ground just a little bit, but I just want to make sure that I stand clearly what the challenges are with us being an ESP, a service provider.
So one of the main components as an ESP is when you look at being a provider, you have to assure assurances that the children are in a home in a home atmosphere or home-based atmosphere are receiving the criteria of the curriculum and instruction. So if we become an ESP, we have to assure anyone we be accepting agreement are actually then being provided the home-based instructional curriculum. So again, we would be then providing the curriculum, which is, to me, the interpretation of what parents don't want us to be involved in and why they are choosing to not have us be involved in homeschooling and the questions of what are you using as a curriculum for English? What are you using as a curriculum for math? If we would become an ESP, we would need to guarantee that those students would be that if they would be signing up with us. Now, I do think that in some of the interpretation depends on who you talk to, because different rules from the state tell me you don't have to become an ESP to partner with homeschool families. Where I've had others say, no, you have to become an ESP to be signed up, and then on that part of the state receive funds. Now, I think we do have, and this is all possibly in the future, a lot of this language also because of the recent injunction. So because of the recent injunction right now, we will continue to provide any services to families that have any desire to join in certain content areas with us, like band, choir, FFA. If they want to, as it's stated in that policy currently, if the school district receives funds through ADM funding, we would be more than happy to partner with those families. The only time that I has a hesitancy to partner with any homebound instruction or home-based instruction is if we have to provide assurances that they are being taught a certain curriculum, or if the district would not be receiving funding for educating those students. Those are the only times that I would have hesitation in our partnership. I had the opportunity to meet with Valley Christian, and I think we have a great plan moving forward without having to have the school district become an ESP, but still providing what we have done in the past, having the opportunity for students to take choir, to take band, and then also utilizing either contracted services for that, because it's a great partnership, great opportunity to partner, and we're exploring those things. But as always, there seems to be a lot of red tape around a lot of things that get in the way of doing things what we know best for kids and what we've been doing in the past as a district, and that's partnering with home-based instruction and partnering with private school students and their families.
Now, that plan that you mentioned with Valley Christian, did you solve the issue of ESA users versus not?
Correct.
And how was that accomplished?
So what we kind of talked about is using a contracted service through Valley Christian, and kind of in conjunction with providing those services for Valley Christian in a contracted service component, where if students would want to take band, we would then on a per pupil basis be able to contract services with Valley Christian to come over and do so.
So then you'd be able to do that with individual families as well.
Potentially, yes. And that's why then I elaborated, like Trustee Phipps had asked for a little bit more elaboration on that second paragraph, and you may have noticed in talking about what that tuition might be for those families that would be going for or utilizing ESA funds. We would then base it on that tuition model, because what we have, and why I used out of state earlier, is whenever we had a parent from out of state wishing to utilize Goshen County School District programming, if you are not a resident of Wyoming, it is established as a tuition rate, or what we used to refer to in the office as out-of-state tuition. And that was that number that was established. And I believe this year we're going to have it approved later in the agenda, and it's $21,000 per pupil is that tuition. So in order to then have a breakdown of what is the cost of a class for a student, is it's 1/8 or 1/8 of a day, because we have an 8-period day, of that total tuition in order to access programming. And then the hopes is that if then that there would be the start of the ESA services, and we don't have to become an ESP. Yeah, we'd do the same. We'd be partnering just as we have in the past. We've been able to do that in this county for the last many years, and I think it's a great partnership that we've established with either home-based instruction or private schools, that unfortunately, because of new rules, it's somewhat getting in the way of this. And then also you may have noticed Superintendent Degenfelder did have a release of information or response to many of the questions that were there. The challenge that I see is in that letter, and in talking with Scott Kopecki, our attorney, there are a lot of things that are beyond the ability of the state superintendent to make unilateral decisions on. I may promise you I will pay you for those services, but if I don't have the authority to release those funds, that isn't a great assurance in that those funds will be available. And it also in that letter speaks very candidly that the legislation wasn't clear enough to provide elaboration on that. And so that's kind of what I've seen also in some of it, is poorly written legislation is coming back to bite us. And that's a real issue. There's a limit on this. Poorly written legislation is getting caught up now in court cases and other situations that are causing this in the middle of July for parents to have to scramble for things that they were expecting to be taken care of. And our legislature should take notice that this is something that they need to address during the legislative session, so we don't find ourselves in July in either trying to interpret what an ESP is, and if we have to become that in order to get funding, or it is unconstitutional. Those are always dangerous grounds to be deciding in July. Opposed to during the legislative session.
So then, just to be clear with the moral of the story, is that the solution of what did you call it, contract services?
Contracted
So
services.
contracted services renders being an ESP irrelevant. Is that a fair statement?
As my interpretation right now, until somebody tells me differently, yes. And I'm comfortable with that we've asked the right people and they've gotten that answer. But I also believe that just like there seems to be a lot of different interpretations coming each week, I can speak now on that's where we're moving forward with and with that assumption. But if new information or the Attorney General's office or someone at the state level says, no, that is incorrect, we will have to then make adjustments. But again, in my personal feeling on this, and it still would be a board decision in which direction to move eventually, if it comes to that, is we want to maintain our partnerships that we have in the past. We have a good thing going, and I want to maintain that. I don't want to eliminate kids from having to have opportunities through our district, which we've been able to offer many times in the past, until someone tells me we can't, or we will not receive funding for those students. That would be the only time in which I would not support that. If that makes sense.
I just have one question and not belabor this anymore. But so based on what you presented us with this, you're comfortable with the information you have right now. You're comfortable with this. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. 10.6, consider approval of proposed new district policy 4306, anti-nepotism, as presented on the second and final reading. Recommendation is to approve the new policy as presented on the second and final reading. Is there a motion? Second? Any discussion? Any abstentions? Motion carries. On to 11, new business. First up, 11.1, consider approval of amended 2024-2025 budget. The recommendation is to approve the amended 2024-2025 budget as presented. Is there a motion? Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Marcy, would you like to go over it a little bit?
Yeah, Madam Chair, the amended budget begins on page 66 in your packet. Just a brief overview. The general fund, it's not necessary to increase the total allocations of that fund. The three funds that it's necessary to increase are revenue fund, food service fund, and the bonus fund. The special revenue fund, we need to increase that by 152,500. The reason being was the receipt of some additional federal money. Thus, we have the additional expenditures that we need to account for. Food service, we've talked about that one repeatedly as we began talking about the preliminary budget. We do need to increase the food service fund by $300,000. And that one is the result of the total amount of transfer needed for CEP. And then lastly, the BOCES fund, that is our $500,000. It's necessary only to increase that by $10,000. The BOCES fund is running very tight. That is our fund where we receive funding for dual and concurrent enrollment, driver's ed. When Mr. Kramer talked about some of our high school students working through the CDL program, that all is funded out of BOCES. And when I present the budget for 25-26, you're going to see where that one is going to run even tighter. So having shared that, I would entertain any questions.
If there are no questions or discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. 11.2, consider approval of mill levies for the 2025-2026 fiscal year. The recommendation is to approve the mill levies at 1 mill recreation levy, half mill BOCES levy, and a 25 mill operational levy. Do we have a motion? Was there a second? Any discussion?
One question. So it said in here that we have up to 3 mills that we can levy. Is that right? And this is just what the recommendation is?
No, we can levy a full mill for the recreation board, and we can levy a half mill for BOCES. That's the higher education BOCES. Some districts you may see are levying half a mill for a early childhood BOCES, but we don't have that here. And then the 25 mill is operational, but that one is not optional.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Oppose? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 11.3, consider adoption of the 2025-2026 fiscal year budget. The recommendation is to approve the 2025-2026 budget as presented. Is there a motion? A second? Any discussion? Mrs. Cates, do you have anything you'd like to share?
If you would like, I can give you a real quick high-level overview of the budget.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
The budget begins on page 79 in your board packet. And I do have it up here on the screen as well. A couple of things that I'd like to share with you. If we look at our revenue, the budget being the far right column, our revenue does look to increase. Let me get rid of this. Our revenue looks to increase from 35,348,000 to 35,750,000. The primary reason of the increase is the ECA that we've talked about, the external cost adjustment that was granted through the legislature. It also is important to talk about our ADM. Our ADM is the average daily membership. And when we got to looking at the ADM and finalizing final reports and actually finished the year and knew which students were actually in buildings and in their seats per se. For this fiscal year 24-25, our actual ADM is 1581. That's 1,581. We also calculate a 3-year average. Our 3-year average is 1,603 students. The importance of those two numbers is when we compare that to 23-24 being last year. Last year's actual ADM was 1,603. The 3-year average last year was 1,598. We get funding based upon the greater of actual or 3-year average. What I want to stress is the fact that we finished the year with the 3-year average that was the equivalent of last year's ADM. Thus, we don't have a decrease in funding associated with the number of our students. So we receive the benefit of the ECA. That, to me, that's very important. I'm going to move over to page 93. That is the revenue versus expenditure history. Went too far. What I want to share with you and really stress on this slide is when you look at the bottom and when I'm doing the budget, my goal is to come back with a final budget that is equal to the preliminary budget or very close to what you approved as the preliminary budget. This year, we had two extenuating factors. We had a very large increase in out-of-district placement based upon placements that were approved for next year, totaling 215,000 additional from what was approved in the preliminary budget. And then the insurance renewal we saw was $145,000 greater than what was projected with the preliminary budget. So what you're being asked to approve tonight is a carryover of 15.4%. That 15.4% goes into carryover or reduces our carryover by $1,249,439. When you saw the preliminary budget, you were presented with a carryover of 16.43% and a reduction to carryover or usage of carryover. Carryover is intended to be used. It's not a bank. The usage of carryover was $1,037,171. So the general fund budget that you're seeing tonight has an additional usage of carryover of $212,000. That's essentially 1% carryover. I was able to accommodate, I think is probably the best word, because when I look at the out-of-district placement and I look at the insurance, that was about $360,000, and you're seeing only $212,000 effect in the general fund budget. Questions on general fund before I move into the other funds? General fund is our operating. That's the largest portion of what we have. The special fund, that's the money that we are hearing a lot about in the news today. You can see FY24, what we projected we would finish the year with, and then the budget. The top portion, and I have made it large so that you can see up here. The top portion is revenue, the bottom portion is expenditure. The special funds is at $3,344,000. That is substantially less from what special fund ended the year at. It is less, but it also is very cautious considering the unknowns of Title II and Title IV funds, and if and when and how much we will receive from the feds. We also had substantial grants that came to a close. This year we had the ESSER money that we still had throughout the first semester. The LIT grant is coming to a close. So it is substantially less. But I can also share with you that when we talk Title II, when we talk Title IV, we don't have dollars earmarked for staffing. Those funds, Title II is professional development. Title IV, any staffing involved with that, we have carryover money from Title IV. So we don't have staffing that we need those dollars for. The next fund is major maintenance, and this is funds we receive from the state. These dollars are allocated through the legislature, $3,580,000 in allocation and interest, and the anticipation of the same expenditures being spent. Capital construction. Here we have $1,735,000 in revenue, $1,735,000 in expenditures. This is the Lingo Fort Laramie Gym HVAC project that we do have component work awarded for. The food service fund. We've talked a lot about this fund. The food service fund, we do have some uniquenesses in that we have 2 non-cash expenditures that we don't reflect in the revenue. Thus, our revenue being budgeted is less than our expenditures. We have commodities and depreciation being recorded in our expenditures. There's no revenues associated with that. So I'm projecting 1,325,000 in revenues, 1,450,000 in expenditures. That is a $450,000 transfer from general fund for CEP. Student activities, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one. This one, when we look at revenues versus expenditures, this is money in, money out, student fundraisers received, and then the student organizations expending those funds as the money was raised for. The rec board, you did just approve the 1 mil. It is important when you look at the rec board, and when you compare FY24 to FY25, the top again being the revenue, the 300,773 was what was actually received this year. The reduction due to the property tax that we're seeing this year looks to be about $25,000. We have had carryover in the rec board, and we still do have carryover, but that will eventually affect what they're able to expend and award. The next one being the BOCES fund, and this is where I think it's really important to see the difference. We had 174,000 received in the BOCES mill. We look to receive 138,511 next year due to the property tax reduction. That also has 100,000 transferred from general fund for a total revenue of 328,511. The BOCES fund is down to a $0 carryover. So we don't have any past earned funds that we can use on next year's students.
Mrs. Gates, can you remind me the difference between concurrent and dual enrollment?
Yep,
Please.
yep. Concurrent is when our teachers are teaching the students actually on our campus. Dual enrollment, they go to EWC or they take it online, and an EWC professor teaches it. The other uniqueness is that when it's concurrent, we have an agreement with EWC where the tuition cost is a wash. We don't have a cost, EWC doesn't have a cost. But dual, we pay 100% of the tuition. We also pay 100% of the books for both dual and concurrent.
Thank you.
So, you know, we're budgeting $75,000 less than was actually spent last year. That this may be one of those that I may be coming forward and requesting an amendment to this budget. And the amendment would be in the form of additional funds transferred from general fund. So having shared that, that concludes my presentation. Would you have any questions?
I have a question about BOCES and the mill. It just kind of came up as you were explaining the mill before also. So we have 2, but the remaining 1/2 can only be early childhood. Is that like, and where, I guess, is that set? Like, who says, you know, you can do 1 for rec board and 1/2 for BOCES and 1 for early childhood?
That's a statutory requirement with the maximum available for rec board being at 1 mil. A half for higher education BOCES and a half for the early childhood. Okay, thank you. Good question.
I get on a soapbox for a second on that
Sure.
because it just bugs me. 1 mil generates a lot different funds in Goshen County than it does in Converse County. And if we want equitability, we're not even close to being equal on the recreation opportunities that other communities in our state have. And that to me is challenging in relation to some of that. And I understand the reasons and the thoughts for making it uniform, but there's a lot of situations across the state where we have not been uniform, and we've tried to create a lot of consistency in those situations, and we've been able to do so. I would love for individuals at the legislative level to take a look at what things that we could offer, because as we look and trying to attract employees to our community, recreation is a driving factor for young families.
Well, and I was just gonna say, I think too, the opportunity for students to participate in dual and concurrent enrollment. I mean, the legislature just expanded the rules for access to that. And like you said, 1/2 mil is different here than it is other places.
Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor of approving the 2025-2026 fiscal year budget? Opposed? Any abstentions? Item 11.4, consider approval of student tuition for the 2025-2026 school year. Previous year's tuition rates are as follows. 2024-25 was $20,371. 23-24 was $20,271, and 22-23 was $18,649. The recommendation is to approve the student tuition rate for the 25-26 school year in the amount of $21,478. Is there a motion?
So moved.
A second? Any discussion?
Marcy, could you give us a high-speed pass on how that number's calculated?
The number is calculated based upon state statute as referenced in the memo. That it really is two different figures, and it's based upon last year. So last year being 24-25. It is the district's total amount of operating costs. So it's the total expenditures divided by the ADM. That $1,581,000. Yep.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. 11.5, consider approval of district meal prices for the 2025-2026 school year. The recommendation is to approve the proposed increases to adult meals and the a la carte item prices for the 2025-2026 school year as presented. Is there a motion? Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. 11.6, consider approval of milk and dairy products bid. The recommendation is to approve contracting with Cashwa as the district's primary milk and dairy product supplier for the 25-26 school year, with the option to renew annually for 4 years as presented. Do we have a motion? Second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. 11.7, consider approval of continued suspension of District Policy 3642, free and reduced price. Is to approve the continued suspension of Policy 3642 through the 25-26 school year due to district participation in the Community Eligibility Program and review of the policy again in July of 2026. Do we have a motion? A second?
Any discussion?
Trustee chairs, if I may, just so everybody understands this is a suspension. It is not to be a part of the community eligibility program. That was really, this is a policy that if we did not suspend it, really, we just don't use. And that's the reason for suspending it, because already in place, as per last month's vote, is the CEP program is already going and moving forward for the 25-26 school. I know in the past, there's been some confusion when you reference that in a reason that I did not want anybody confused on that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any abstention? Motion carries. 11.8, consider a request to rescind a teacher resignation. The recommendation is to approve rescinding the resignation of Gary Glass as the TMS-THS instrumental music teacher at the end of the 2024-25 school year. Do we have a motion? Yeah. All those in favor? Opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Item 11.9, consider approval of offering a teaching contract for the 25-26 school year. The recommendation is to approve offering a teaching contract to Gary Glass as the instrumental music teacher at TMS and THS for the 25-26 school year. Is there a motion? A second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Any? Motion carries. Item 11, and consider approval of contracting for residential student placement services for the remainder of 2025. The recommendation is to approve contracting with New Haven to provide residential and clinical therapy services from June 11th, 2025 through December 31st, 2025 for student number 6521, not to exceed $185,716. Is there a motion? A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Any? And carries. 11.11, consider approval of contracting for district physical therapy services. The recommendation is to approve contracting with North Platte Physical Therapy for district physical therapy services from August 1st, 2025 through July 31st, 2027 at the rate of $90 per hour for direct and indirect services. This is a general fund special education reimbursable item. Is there a motion? Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any abstentions? Motion carries. 11.12, consider approval of contracting for district speech services. The recommendation is to approve contracting with Tiny Eye Therapy Services for student speech language services via teletherapy for the 2025-2026 school year at the rate of $85 per hour, not to exceed $74,375. This is also a general fund special education reimbursable item. Is there a motion? Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. 11.13, consider approval of purchase exceeding $10,000 for the renewal of Edmentum course software. The recommendation is to approve the renewal of course software subscriptions and licenses from Edmentum for Torrington High School and Platte River School in the total amount of $19,380.35. This is funded through General Fund High School Instruction PRS-THS building budget, Y-Built grant, and Title IV. Do we have a motion? Second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. 11.14, consider approval of vehicle purchase for district maintenance department. The recommendation is to approve the purchase of a 3/4 ton pickup truck from Bob Ruart Motors in the total amount of $48,294. Is there a motion? Second? Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carried. 11 point. Consider approval of contracting for New Bell Intercom and Alert Systems. The recommendation is to approve contract licensing of New Bell Intercom and Alert Systems at Trail Elementary and Lingle Fort Laramie Elementary School. The total amount $152,006.21. This is a major maintenance fund. Just price. Second. Any discussion?
I just have a question. So the Lingle Fort Laramie is pretty new. And is there not any warranty or I guess what's the deal with that?
Mike, do you want to kind of explain the problem? Trail is a system that we have to actually address. It's one that is now at a point of not able to repair. Lingle is experiencing some of those same difficulties and probably almost since day one. But Mike, you can elaborate a little bit more better than I can. A challenge that we're faced with is kind of configuration when it was configured, and then also what Mike has found. We've done a great job over the years of making things work. When we continue to get these advanced technologies, when we experience a problem, it's a very quick domino row where we tried to make a opening door system work with an intercom system, working with a security and fire alarm system that are not compatible. Even more dominoes start to fall, and that's what we're experiencing at Lingle right now with the intercom system, is because we moved over to an advanced security system necessarily compatible to door system, which is incompatible with some of the other systems. And so that's the reason. It's an excellent question. I'm glad actually you brought it up, because I'm sure many of the people, start new a school. Why are we replacing an intercom system in one of our newer schools?
Any further discussion?
And be one of those situations in which the more that we kind of can go years out, but yes, it'll probably be a proposed yearly expenditure, again, tied to appropriate funding and those things that have been continuous. If funding is maintained where we're at, that would be the plan. But moving forward, we'll adjust based on the funding availability. So eventually we will have all these systems and being able to talk to each other seamlessly, kind of where we've gotten to where the security system, by doing so, that was last year. We've been able to do a lot more with the system and been saving significant amounts of time. And so that's our hope with the system also.
So then, and Mike, so the big question is, for this amount of money, if we were to try to just keep patching the system, we could potentially be creating some safety issues with fire and other issues.
Right now, Trail has a safety issue. Right now with their operating capabilities. Lingle Elementary is on the verge, I think is what we've talked about, Mike, is that we could, if we absolutely had to, try to repair the system as is for the next year. But eventually those fail safes will falter. And an intercom system is a very important system to have for the safety of a school working properly.
Any further? All those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. 11.16, consider approval of intergovernmental agreement for school resource officer. The recommendation is to approve entering the intergovernmental joint agreement with the city of Torrington and the Torrington Police Department in agreement with the Goshen County Sheriff to provide one half-time school resource officer as presented for the 25-26 school year at Southeast Schools and LaGrange Elementary. This is general fund expenditure. Is there a motion? A second? Any discussion?
So they also have an agreement to staff that, and because of their experience with the SRO program within Torrington, modeled that same structure out of there. It also dealt with the availability of staff member and trying to, as we know, the sheriff's department it's more understaffed and not having as much ability to provide the number of staff possibly needed to cover that. And then the availability of providing those services and a structure that's already in place. I wish Chief Johnson had kind of stepped out. He'd be able to elaborate on that a little bit more on the specifics, but it was a great, when we started the process of doing it and looking at those needs, it was the best piece to move it forward rather quickly. And then also having that agreement between the Sheriff's Department and Torrington Police Department to be able to operate that system too. And so it's kind of a combination because we have a vehicle from the Sheriff's Department. We have an employee from the Torrington Police Department. We then have the incorporation of the school into that. It's a lot of moving parts to get it to all work, but great question. Nope, absolutely. That's a great question. One of the things, and that's been specific, is having a specific time. And if they are in an SRO role, being in an SRO role, where Lingle right now, as the town police officer, only having one member, they are not able to devote being an SRO member during our school time. And so they don't have the staffing at Lingle. The fortunate thing with Lingle is that we do have a town police officer who is readily available in those calls, and we partner with regularly. But in the contracting structure, that's what we worked with in Torrington and through the Southeast and LaGrange portion, is that they are specifically only an SRO officer. Now, there's certain emergencies that we have laid out in the contract that state emergency situations, they can't be called off of that SRO role, but primarily that is 100% their role during their time, where Lingle is not able to provide that. But thank you for that question.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. 11.17, consider approval of building portion of elementary student handbooks. Elementary student handbooks were emailed to the board on June 24th, 25 for review. The recommendation is to approve the 25-26 elementary student handbooks as presented from Lincoln Trail, LaGrange Southeast, and Lingle Elementary School. Do we have a motion? Second? Any discussion? Go ahead. Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. 11.18, consider approval of building portion of secondary student handbooks. These were also, these were emailed out to the board on July. The recommendation approves the 25-26 secondary student handbooks as presented from Torrington Middle School, Torrington High School, Platte River School, Lingle Fort Laramie Middle and High School, and Southeast Junior High School. Do we have a motion? Is there a second? Any discussion? Yes.
Yeah, and when I looked at there was the only change, and Lindsay, you can tell me if I'm incorrect on it, was the additional sentence at the beginning stating where they can put on a playlist and then place that in that concealed containers. That is the only difference there. Yep. But otherwise, discipline for step 1, step 2, and step 3 are uniform across the district. But thank you. Yep. And I appreciate talking about that ahead of time and kind of reviewing that. So thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. 11.19, consider district price for the 25-26 school year. The recommendation is to approve maintaining gate admission prices for the 25-26 school year at the rate of $5 per person, excluding district students and employees, and $25 per year for the annual and task for 3651.1. Is there a motion? Second? Any discussion?
$5 per person, but is there any breakdown for kids that aren't out of district, or do they get in free?
I believe my understanding is that if they're GCSD students, then they get in free.
But so even elementary kids from out of district pay the $5.
I was going to say that this is not a change from the 24-25. This is saying that it has been.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 11.20, consider approval of proposed new job description. This was an additional agenda item added on July 16th. The recommendation is proposed new job description, human resources generalist, payroll and benefits as presented. Is there a motion? Again.
Second.
Any discussion? Yes.
I'll ask our HR director, Holly Lara, to give a little bit more elaboration on what was looking for a position where this has been a change. And go right ahead.
Had a resignation of our payroll and benefits specialist. We advertised for that position with the current job description. We had 11 applicants for the position, of which there were only 3 that met some of the expectations that we considered and the background that we felt would be beneficial and had the skills desired. We interviewed those 3 candidates. There was a committee of 5, representation of classified and professional and administrative staff. After interviewing, we found that those 3 candidates did not have the background or the qualifications necessary. All of them had some background, but we are a large entity, and that's a difficult in our region and in our area to find someone with that type of broad expanse of knowledge. So in conversation with Mr. Kramer and Ms. Cates, we felt that this new job description of HR generalist would provide more of what the district is looking for with that. The other thing that will do is that will provide some assistance to myself in the event that I'm absent. That person would be able to do onboarding and exiting and FMLA and some of those things that are necessary to the function of the district. So, any other questions? Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, we'll repost under the new job description if approved tonight.
So this is a job replacement of the job.
That is correct. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, and in some ways, it is the creation of a new position. Because it will not, as the job responsibilities of the vacated position, this will have significantly higher responsibilities than that position, and then potential expansion for other areas to fulfill the needs in the future.
It's just not gonna add an FTE.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
That is
Yeah,
correct.
The difference though,
Yes.
to take note of, and it is important, is this is an exempt position, a salaried position versus an hourly position that was in place there.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Mrs. Laura, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Finally, number 12, board topics for discussion.
Madam Chair, I might quit working, so I'll just talk about it. I would, if it doesn't already exist, I don't believe it does, I would like the board to address verbiage, written verbiage, policy, in relation to the firearms training for our staff. Written, policy that outlines that we are not going to put the expensive training on our staff. And then we have a question along with that about, there's a couple issues. We want to pay them for their time, because if we're, seems reasonable, we're requiring them to take an extra step beyond what the legislation requires. That we would have to address the issue of them being paid for their time. And then there's another question for those teachers or staff who are willing to take on this responsibility, but who might not have their concealed carry permit yet. Would we as the district cover the fee that they would have to pay to acquire that concealed carry?
I can add those to the. Okay, that's enough, if that's acceptable to you.
That would work, thank you.
That fall on policy committee to draft that, or does that go to the board as a discussion?
I think it would be proposed language that I would probably put some possible language together. And if a couple of board members would want to work on that with me, I can kind of share, at least then generate some framework to have the board take a look at, if that would be acceptable to the board.
Would you like a committee established?
If I could have two people volunteer, that would be wonderful. Val is raising their hand. So, okay. Excellent. So thank you both. I'll be in contact and we'll get something generated. Thank you.
And also, Madam Chair, I have another question. On that same idea. Even though this policy is addressing for people who have concealed carry permits, I see a value in allowing any staff member to be able to at least participate in the scenario. Because whether they carry a gun or not, they can still potentially be in a situation. And it would be a valuable asset for our staff to understand how the process runs. And be prepared in case they are faced with it. So I see some value there in making this available to the staff members who would like.
Trustee Sharp, I do not want to speak for Chief Johnson as you're not here, but my understanding in the past was that anyone in the community was invited to participate in those trainings that they do.
Okay.
So perhaps that's an issue of just advertising that information better to staff that they can participate.
I think with the, yeah, and that's great. It's great, because as a board member, I think I would like to participate.
And you can.
And see how this works, even though I'm not there on the school day. It's so interesting.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I had, and we don't have time to fully get into it right now, but I think for the future, we as a board, should just have more conversations regarding like at the building level, when we can't provide. When we are admitting we can't provide enough staffing. Example, for math teacher. Ms. Van Tilburg, don't let this come across wrong. I am fully trusting that you're doing everything in your power to accommodate the students for this year. But just as a parent, I just have grave concerns with that. I mean, again, you're gonna do everything in your power, but some things are out of your power. One, you're gonna be understaffed. So, you know, as a building administration, you guys are doing everything you can. That doesn't fully ease my concerns as a parent, because my kid's going a full year in limbo. You know, what if he falls behind, what if they blah, blah, blah. You know, so I just have a lot of concerns as a parent with that and how that would look. And as on the board level, I know this isn't gonna be the last time that we run into this problem. It's just not, especially with NAB. So I just don't know if we could have more conversation or thoughts regarding this at some point. I just don't like to throw it away and then not ever talk about it. And then come the end of the year, there's 25% of the kids in THS math that are having to be called in for intervention, and we're, you know, just have a hard time with that, because then that we're expecting the students to do that kind of on their own time outside of that class period. Ish. Because we don't have the staffing. I guess I can see. There's more concerns with it.
Mr. Hager, could I address that real quick?
Sure.
Because there was one thing I failed to tell you earlier, just to give you a time frame of kind of how this all developed. Our math teacher, Mr. Hanson, resigned sometime in March. I want to say it was middle of March, I think. We interviewed a gentleman from Rock Springs who did not even have a math endorsement. He had a business endorsement. Through a series of events, you know, his wife also applied here, wasn't offered a position. They took a position elsewhere. After that, we only had one other math person, and that was the one we just interviewed from Northeastern Wyoming, and he did have a math endorsement. But he felt like, and his wife felt like, it was getting too late in this, you know, the summer to accept the offer that we gave them. That's all that we had apply. So, I mean, to your point, I mean, I have grave concerns too, but I don't know what the answer is at this time. I mean, we've tossed around a lot of stuff between Mrs. Laura, Mr. Kramer, Mr. Derby. You know, when you're looking at this and you're 2 months away and then you're a month away, that's why I made the decision to get our counselors in there, our teachers in there, you know, and we made sure that Mr. Steinmetz, he wasn't at the meeting when we came up with the numbers. Could we condense into class sizes? But we did inform him of what we were doing, and he was comfortable with it for this year. But that's where we're at. And I agree. I have concerns. It's doable. Like I said, I've seen it done in Nebraska where I've come from. It's larger class sizes. Ideally, math, you know, you have as small class sizes as you can get, but that's not where we're at. So I just wanted you to know that that's all we've had apply. So yes, Ms. Steinbach.
Thinking outside the box and teaching at college level, you know how you have teachers who teach Monday through Fridays. Do we have an option doing something kind of, I know that we haven't, that students go to math every single day. But is there an option within our schedule to be able to have, because I have someone right now who has an endorsement in math. Who the thing is she wouldn't be able to come here every day. And so can we think outside the box in a way that we can possibly do something where maybe it's an advanced math and they do 2 days a week of an hour and a half or something. I don't know if that's even a possibility with our schedule. But I'm just thinking of somebody who would be perfect, but there's no way she would write. So. I don't know if we have something like that, if we can even do like that, that's something I thought.
We are always interested in any ideas.
Mhm.
And we will fully investigate them, and if there's a possibility, we will first investigate it and see if it's it's opportunity. But I don't think I know Mr. Van Tilburg and I would never say no to any ideas to at least investigate them, so please don't hesitate. If you have an idea, let us know and we'd be more than happy, especially when they involve a person who would be of high quality. We'd love to. No.
Yeah. Well, and I put this on my Facebook page back in April because I knew this was going to be an issue and we weren't getting any bites. I did have a gentleman from Colorado down by the Colorado Springs area reach out. He never followed back through with anything really, and he had family here in Torrington. And I think we have a wonderful place to live, a wonderful district. I mean, there just aren't people to cover all the positions. I mean, that's really our issue.
How someone who has a bachelor's degree in math, specifically in math, and they also have a substitute teaching certificate, would they be eligible to teach for a year in that kind of a position? They wouldn't have the pedagogy, but they would have the
Math, yeah.
They were taught at the college level.
Well, they can always go to the exemption piece too. Or Lorraine, is there a better avenue that you're thinking of?
They would be able to get one of those exception authorization permits for 3 years, but that's if they're willing to enter into an education program to get a participation, which means, that's when you go math ahead. Which they would have to get the education from, but they also want to math.
Are you thinking more of like a long-term subsidy?
Yeah. Well, we'll just do it for you.
Well, and then if they already have substitute authorization, they're good to do that.
We could do emergency things for 1 year. I mean, we've done that before. We did it with an elementary art position a few years ago. We had someone in there for a 1 year position, but also that person was also a teacher, just not with the arts. And, there's ways we can make certain things work, but Wyoming is tricky that way.
Yeah, right now, there are 6 high school math positions and 3 middle school math positions. So we have to think, like you said, if we will investigate any and all options. If you have individuals, we would more than happily entertain any thoughts and ideas to make it work.
Do you think, like, I'm just thinking in the future here, and I know the state's ready to slow it down, but do you think, like, worst case scenario, 5 years from now, if the state can do something with math requirements, what if we just cannot get teachers? I mean, but we still expect the kids. At the end of this year, then, Mr. Van Tilburg, you're still gonna expect the kids to go in there and take that math class. And will the numbers survive? So.
Well, it's not just that, it's also the ACT. I mean, that impacts our kids that are going to graduate. Hence the argument for the intervention classes. I mean, we have kids that are behind, and to get them caught up so that they can do well in the ACT to get into Black Hills State or University of Wyoming 21 ACT. We've got to get kids caught up, but we got to have teachers to do that. So.
We're not making it happen.
No.
Probably outside the school, you can take this right here, and those kids are gonna do every single thing they need to do to pass that class. And have it done in about 0.2 seconds. In every job, you can take this out, without your math problem, and have it done, and your boss is gonna say, good job to get that done on time. But inside the school.
Got to do the work. Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately, one of the areas that is the slowest to move, and they've gotten better over the years, is licensure. But the very interesting part is if you have a licensure out of state and try to get endorsed in the same areas in the state, different requirements. And it's quite unusual when and very territorial in regards to licensure and how they provide that. And like you said, we're gonna have to start adapting in one way or the other, because we're not creating a lot of new teachers in this field.
And this concern right now is math, but it's also science and art and home ec and auto. I mean, it goes across secondary like wildfire. So it's a bigger issue.
Well, I mean, an example, and when my first principal's position, I hired a third grade teacher in north central Iowa. I had over 115 applicants. Elementary position right now, I would be lucky to get to the number of 10, if that, at the elementary. And that is probably where we're most highly staffed and probably still graduating a higher number. And that's what we're looking at, is the teaching profession is not in one in which people are gravitating to right now. We have to change that.
Change our retirement policy so we could coerce people out of retirement. I think we've done that 3 or 4 times in the last few years.
And we are so blessed to have some people who are willing and community members to come back and do that for us. And again, I can't thank Mr. Glass enough for doing that, because every one of those individuals who did so earned their retirement also, and should be enjoying that portion also. And to have them come back in that role is challenging for them, for their families, all of those things.
Can I say one more thing on that? I have a question. So if there are fewer people, going into these professions, and so we're kind of competing, right? I mean, is salary something that we need to be talking about? And I know that is dependent on lots of other things, but I don't know. I get nervous when we start talking about credentialing and all of that. Like, I don't think we want to say, like, we want to lower the requirements. Or at least that's my initial response. Instead, it's like, we want to entice people here. So if we're competing really for the few people who are going into those areas, I think we just need to admit that that's also.
Well, I think as a profession too, that's the important component that I feel very strongly that it is something that I'm very, very happy with our base. I think the board has done a great job in doing its due diligence there. But as a profession, I don't know that it's drawing people to that. And that's the difficulty of it, is what do we have to do to have people wanting to go into that profession? And then 2, grow your own programs and those types of things. And it's hard to grow your own when also 2, we're stretching our current staff as much, because those students are seeing those staff members stressed and asking themselves, do I want to go into that profession? And so we're just our own worst enemy on a daily basis, because we're continuing to ask more and more and more. And yet we're selling ourselves short in a lot of these too. So I don't know if there is definitely not a quick answer. And it's a long-term problem, but we're going to have to come to grips in one way, shape, or form. But again, I just appreciate the ideas, some thoughts that you guys have to maybe address some of these things too. Maybe not long-term solutions, but even in the short term, you can get there too.
I can add to the competitiveness of our salary, would you mind?
Please.
So, data from the WSBA, they rank the base salary of districts across the state of Wyoming. We are in the top 5 of districts in the Wyoming, the state of Wyoming. And the difference in the top 5 is $2,000. We are $11,000 ahead of the bottom of that of the one that's on the bottom of the list. So we are extremely competitive. Our other things that are attractive in our district is our 4-day school week,
our benefits are competitive, so we are right up there as far as offering salaries and, being competitive in that. But that just goes back to what Mr. Kramer, has said, the number of, folks in different professions are just, not there for conversion. And so, yes, so we are competitive in that.
I have a question. Are we having a summer school? And if we are not, is it because of staffing? Because we normally by now, we have somebody out here talking about how many kids we have in summer school and how well they're doing and coming up and.
If I go back to last year, we had put in the budget to not be, because of the ESSER funds expiring, we did not have the funds to have summer school this year. So we did not have summer school. We had extended school year services provided to students on individualized education plans as part of that IEP, but we did not have a summer school program. This year.
I have one more question, a different topic, but regarding the after-school programs funding getting cut. Do you have any just random concerns about, maybe to help the public on, I don't know, where to get it going, what options we got, or?
Yes, that's actually, I just had a text exchange with Lynette Salcedo today in regards to the reduction in funding that they will probably be experiencing in regards to after-school programming, after-school funding. We're also in a situation right now with the withholding of title funds, where there's a potential right now of us having to dip into general fund to cover current positions. That's a short-term solution. When those funds are reduced, and actually I was at a meeting with Mayor Doby today, services are going to be cut. There's no way around it. And it is to whether we have things to put back into place where we then run budget again negative for only a short period of time to provide those services in other areas, or we say those services are just not something our community can provide any longer. And that's where we're getting to right now in our when you look at any government entity right now, services are being cut. And we're very fortunate to be in a financial position to cover some of those for the next year. Marcy, I'm probably making Marcy very nervous, but we're going to work on maintaining our status quo. But we're going, unless things change, either funding wise or with a recalibration, which is another important factor at the state level in Wyoming for the services that we're providing in the basket of goods. That's one of those things that is going to come into question. And what are those programs looking like, and do they exist any longer? And we have to. I strongly recommend if you are utilizing those services or any services right now, that you make sure your elected officials know the importance of those services to you, because there is not any service right now that I would say is not one falling into question as to whether it is going to be maintained.
The worst case scenario, just regarding the after school program funding. Well, it's cut for now, but for sure, whatever that deadline is, if it stops, does the after school program stop?
I have not gotten I would hate to speak for Lynette in that situation. I can only assume, make an assumption out with that, but yes, that would be the case. Is if the funding would not be there would be no way to operate it. They will do what we've done in our entities, is stretch it as far as humanly possible, either through reductions initially to try to reduce where they can, where they feel they can. And I think that's the current plan, is to try to go on for as long as humanly possible until it doesn't exist anymore. But eventually there's going to become a time in which there are not the funds to even maintain a limited staff, let alone any staff. Thank you for bringing that up, trustee Baker.
So this is an issue where I actually would not be able to vote on it because of my relationship to the after-school program. But I do have a question about this. So is that something you're planning in the future, is to present something to the board? A list of options or?
Currently, because we've been out of the after-school program, I wouldn't be able to speak if that would be even a possibility for us. I can say that we could certainly investigate it as an option, but it would then be I don't know, outside of dipping significantly into our, well, we'd be dipping into carryover in a significant way to maintain programs like that. That would be not a program that we've operated. Has there been any time in which the school district has operated, an after-school program?
You have even rough numbers with what that's the.
I honestly don't. I could get those to you, though, pretty easily, I think. Lynette would be more than happy to share what those potential costs would be. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question.
Any further discussion this evening? All right, up finally is our future meetings. Our next regular school board meeting will be on Tuesday, August 12th, 2025 at 6 p.m. at Central Administration Office. The annual back to school in-service for all district staff will be on Monday, August 11th at the Torrington Middle School Gymnasium, and lunch for all staff and families will be hosted by the Board of Trustees. Feel free to attend, and more information will be provided at a later date. And finally, the 2025 WSBA Fall Regional Meeting will be on Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025 at Converse County School District in Douglas from 6 to 7:30 p.m.
And on that last one, if you're at all interested, I will be going. And if you want to ride along, you are more than welcome. It's a great meal, good conversation with other board members and other superintendents from our southeast region. Please just let me know before September 3rd if you'd like to ride along. You're certainly welcome.
We also have to RSVP.
And we also have to RSVP. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
there is also a law and leadership training in Fairview on August 7th and 8th.
Is that WSBA as well?
Pardon?
Is that WSBA as well?
I believe that, yes, we saw, or they're at least involved in that. I think that's also about it.
One final thing in regards to meetings. We had discussed doing a work session with Brian Farmer and Sue Baelish, and we're unable to find a date in July that worked. Would we like to try that again for August? Wait until the fall? Are there any thoughts on that? It's like herding squirrels trying to get all 9 of us in one room.
I would say my suggestion would be to go towards September, month of September, to try to schedule that one at a work session.
I agree. If we all have summer plans. Okay, so we'll wait, we'll talk about it again. Okay, if there's nothing further, we are adjourned. Oh, wait. Don't go away. And then it's like, we're adjourned. So. I know.